Welcome back, everybody, to your daily update on the state of the Malaysian Empire. And this is the home stretch. This is me talking about the first two chapters of Book 7 of the Crippled God. That's chapters 21 and 22. So tomorrow we'll be talking about chapter 23 because it's really long. And then on Wednesday we'll be talking about chapter 24, which is even longer. And then we're done with the entirety of the Malaysian Book of the Fall, which, is kind of intimidating at this point. We'll see how I feel after the entire thing is done again. Anyway, that's sort of it, so let's get started. Cheers. Yeah, so we have come to, I guess, the actual, home stretch with a lot of battles and stuff going on, which always means that there's less of the philosophizing because we have a lot of actual, literal, action scenes and so on going on. That was not a good sentence. But still, I feel there's a bunch of things that we can look at that are interesting here. One of them is certainly the idea of underestimating, of arrogance that we see obviously in humanity, but we also see it mostly here with the Forkrow Assail, underestimating the Ganamas Paran and the other people of the Malaysian Army there, underestimating them again and again and again. So yeah, there's that. And with the things that are going on there, I feel it's interesting and important to look at this idea of of arrogance there, because the Forkrow Assail obviously believe themselves to be in the right, and once again we see that idea that they believe themselves to be superior. They have that feeling of superiority, which is founded on some truth, because they are obviously individually stronger, faster, and so forth than humans. But that's obviously also only half of it, because we see that situation that they don't have that much military discipline, because it's all built on just hard using their voice to force people to do what they want. And that means that those Shriven are basically just slaves, or even less than slaves, like tools in a way. And that doesn't work. Obviously it doesn't really work, because you don't once you kill all those for, let's say, the way Paran sends Kalam and Quickbend to do, you cut off that head, basically, which is one of these ideas that you have with the Malaysians. When we see that when Kalam talks to, I don't know, to Minala, right, about the bridge burners being using the bridge burners being that kind of army that was run by the sergeants. And I guess it's something that we learn over time now with the Malaysians, right? The Malaysian army, the Malaysian soldier is actually a soldier. That is different from being a warrior. That's different from being a warrior, because it combines a lot of other things, and it means discipline, self-discipline, but also morals. We had that much earlier when they talk about that idea that with the uniform, also protecting the soul of the soldier in a way that comes from Dasem Ultor at some point. And we see now that that is one of the things that make the Malaysians stronger in a way, or capable of doing things that other armies are maybe not so much capable of, because they are not fanatics. They are just very good at their job, and have found some kind of identity as professional soldiers, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. because you compare it to, say, the Parish Greyhounds, who are, as we know, also like a formidable sword like army, formidable force, but they are run as a cult. They are run as a, yeah, as a cult of fanatics. And once again, they also have that idea of superiority that can lead to miscalculations, as we see in that whole idea between Tanakalian and what's his name, with Tanakalian and Setok, and the conversation they have about what the wolves want and what Tanakalian thinks the wolves want, and the idea that yes, that the wolves in the end just want, like everyone, like all humans, to die, and but this idea of beast gods that are not like, that don't have the motives that other gods have, because all the other gods we have seen are absolutely like, even the elder gods are all like basically human. By human, once again, I mean people, right? There's obviously for colossal gods and humans, jackad, and whatnot, but they're all intelligent, technically individuals, which I guess is one of the reasons why there's no Kachain Chamal gods as such, because they are not individuals when it comes to that kind of idea, like personality. And they, yeah, so they think rationally in a specific way. But the beasts, Tog and Fenderay, they are not humans. They don't think rationally. It's kind of difficult to figure out if they are actually thinking in any like more like higher sense. They plan ahead or whatever, or is it just instinct and rage? Which, is super interesting because possibly, I mean, we've spoken about that before, right? That there is obviously that bond between worshippers and their gods, and it goes in like both directions. But with the wolves, it's possible. This is the interesting bit here, right? It's possible that their worshippers are actually smarter than the gods, by a like a whole magnitude. But on the other hand, accepting that would show the how to say, would show the arrogance once again of humanity over their animal animals basically. And I feel that's like a super interesting way to look at it, because like, how can you worship this idea, and is it actually are you actually worshipping an Artog and Fenderay, basically a construct of human, ideas, in the same way that, say, the Crippled God was influenced by, in a way, by his followers, his worshippers that have brought, yeah, wounds and brokenness into the field in a way. How much of Tog and Fenderay is actually the spirit of wolves, and how much is it the ideal of a wolf as conceived by humans? Which I guess will be interesting to look at in a way. Yeah, I just had something that I really wanted to talk about, and it kind of slipped my mind. I'll hope that it comes back. Let's look at corabus. I feel that's sort of the tragedy of corabus, being unleashed now, but having to fight because that once again comes to this idea that when you have a sort of magical universe where forces of nature also have like personifications in a way, or whatever you want to call it, that by definition are people with a soul, because obviously we know that souls exist in the Malaysian world. What that does is that because as we said before, forces of nature are implacable, they normally, don't make exceptions or anything. They're rules, they're forces of nature. But people, beings with souls, are not people of like implacable rules. That's not how we work. None of us. We have all these like things like morals and shit that will oftentimes come up against the rules of the universe, and that will lead to problems. So Corabus is one more of these examples where you see that she doesn't want to be the force of abnegation, but she has no choice, and that's where her anguish and suffering comes from, right? Apart from like obviously the pain of being like crucified and shit like that, but a large part of it is really the fact that she is a force of nature that she does not want to be, because who wants to be a force of utter like destruction and abnegation? It's not exactly something you wanna be, in a way. So I feel super bad for her. It's like that situation with her. She has to fight all these other dragons and so forth. But that idea of not having a choice is once again one that I feel personally have a lot of compassion for, because I run up against the rules of the universe a lot of times, and I'm also not very happy with it. And I'm just a rather privileged human being. All right, yes, that was something that I wanted to talk about. When I think it's Reverence or Serenity, I don't know, one of the Fortress Assail talking or thinking about the Crippled God and his worshippers, and we have that idea that the Fortress Assail are perfect, justice is perfection, and so forth, and the idea that the Crippled God and the creed of the Crippled God about wounds, being wounded or broken, is by definition imperfect, because that's sort of the point of like wounds and stuff like that. And I feel we're hitting on something here that is important, and that is the idea of perfection or imperfection. It's one of those that's close to the idea of normality in a way, where it's like this is how things ought to be, and then from saying this is just like statistically the way things are, or this is how statistically something looks, you then ascribe a moral value to that, because in the end that's not the point. I mean, that's I guess where the Fortress Assail and a lot of us humans oftentimes go wrong. That's where your fascism comes from, your positivism, in a sense, where you're like, yeah, this is normal, and not being normal is morally wrong and needs to be changed. And the same goes for perfection. Like, it's kind of in the word already. It's like perfection and imperfection. Like, yeah, but not being perfect is suddenly seen as morally wrong, and not just as like not being like physically perfect or whatever it is. And it's that tendency that we have so often in our lives as humans, that we ascribe like everything with at least shades of morality, right? We're not saying it's morally wrong to be to have a disability. It's not that bad at the moment, right? But we certainly have this feeling that it's like that there is like less worth in something that isn't perfect. There's less worth in something that is maybe not fully normal in that weird sense of normality. And I feel a lot of problems come from that weird connection between that, making that a moral judgment as well. So yeah, there is that. What else would be interesting? Yeah, I did like that discussion with Kalam and Quickben and Commander Ericala of the Greyhounds, when they basically just destroy the entire Colancy army with their munitions, and Kalam explains that, yeah, humans will just keep on slaughtering each other, and that's exactly what the wolves obviously want. So that's exactly the right thing to say in Kalam, just not even like care. Quick band for a moment, thinking that was like a strategy, and it's like, no, I just told you how it's gonna be. And this is obviously a problematic thing. It's this idea that we as a people are unable to learn or change to the positive. Something that you find when you read your Thucydides or your Thomas Hobbes. This idea that we are bound by human nature, so to speak, to repeat our mistakes and not be able to change our behavior. And I feel that pessimism is a huge problem, because it oftentimes feels very natural to suspect that, because, so far we haven't, done very well when it comes to changing. I mean, in small parts, definitely, but as a species overall, I don't know. But it's important to keep in mind that it is still possible. The possibility needs to be in our minds, because if we already erase the possibility, then if we erase the possibility from our minds, then yes, then we can't change. But hoping or believing that it exists, that change is possible, is the important bit there, I feel. So yeah, there's that. What else? Yeah. What's it called? Bryce's Dream or whatever about death. I feel it's a super important idea, this idea that we as humanity, faced with the fact of our mortality, are obviously afraid of what comes then, because we don't know what comes then. Like, why you have all these people being interested in stuff like near-death experience and shit like that, or you build up a religion that kind of solves that problem for you, because being, as I said, being people with a limited idea of, like, at least an idea of time and future, we want to know as much as possible about what happens next, to prepare and plan and so forth. And that not being possible with death is like the big unknown. Fear of death is something that is extremely real for a lot of us. And it would be so much better if there is, someone awaiting us, which, would be, for example, in this case, well, not for him, for Bryce specifically, but would be, for example, now in the Malaysian world, the bridge burners, which can help and make that, once again, that like force of nature that is death, a more understandable or acceptable end, I guess. Yeah, what else was there? Feel there was some more. Oh yeah, right, about the elder gods. Draconis killing Setchel-Lath and Kilmandaros, and I feel so bad for Setchel-Lath. He's always like this, another one of these people. And it was that like one part when they talked about his attempt to fight against chaos and go all the way in. And he's another one of those characters where you have this idea that they are basically a personification of a force of nature, an implacable one, and one that is like difficult to understand. In this case, it's chance, because chance and mischance, yeah, sometimes shit happens because the universe. And putting a face on that and giving that face a soul is where it becomes problematic, because that person, in this case Setchel-Lath, cannot just keep on being that without being like incensed or taking sad or wounded or whatever from that, because as a person with those senses of morality and justice and so forth, he can't but face the fact that he's god of something that is unfair. Well, and that fucks with your mind. So I totally get his tiredness and so forth. So yeah, I do get that bit. And he, having to defend his mother, that's the point. He is a moral being. He's a moral being, which makes that job even more difficult for him. Anyway, I think I've probably forgotten a lot of things that were important, but since I'm, just a person with very little brain, I think I'll just, end it here for today. I'll talk to you tomorrow about chapter 23. Until then, cheers.